Hey folks, welcome to November 2016 WWGOA live streaming from my shop here in western Wisconsin. Hopefully you're bringing your questions and we're going to do what we can to help you out. First thing I want to do, I'm going to do a little bit of show and tell because I'm kind of proud of this project. This is a flag that an Eagle Scout from our local scout troop got as part of his Eagle Award. So they asked me to make a flag case for it, and this is the case. That's black walnut. So the flag is going to tuck in there like that. It's obviously missing its glass from the front yet. And then what I did that I think is pretty cool, if you could get a zoom in on this, Krista, is the advantage of having a CNC in the shop. And I'm pretty proud of the way this came out. The Eagle is 3D clip art that I could get from Vectric. I purchased that. And then the text is for the kid who got his Eagle, the date he got it. And then the Scout fleur-de-lis, I got that as clip art off the internet, changed it into vectors and the software and imported it in so that we could do the cutting here. So that's going to end up mounted on the bottom like that. And then the whole thing will hang on the wall. So I just, like I said, I was pretty proud of that. And so I'm doing just a little bit of show and tell. And Krista, if you've got a question we can launch into, fire it well.
I do. Rod wants to know, how do you properly use a table saw tapering jig when the stock to be cut is longer than the jig itself?
Well, this is a good do question. This is a good demo question. So let's roll toward the table saw, if you please. And I grab a tapering jig. Rod, was it?
Yep.
All right. So traditional table saw tapering guide, tapering jig, and they work fine. And the problem that he's talking about is if the stock that you want to cut is longer than what the jig can handle, how are you going to pull that up? So for instance, I got some junk laying here. If I've got this piece, that's going to be kind of awkward to handle on this taper. So let me show you how I would do a larger piece of stock like this. The first thing is you're going to have to manually lay out the taper that you're trying to produce. So I think, Krista, if you can zoom in and down on the board, and that'll set you up for the table saw cut as well. To lay out the taper, I'm just going to randomly throw some numbers on here. And then my down and dirty trick for drawing a line is to actually use the tape measure to do that. I'm hooking it on that end, right on that pencil line, stretching it nice and tight so it stays fairly rigid. And then draw a line. All right, there's a taper I want to cut. What I'm going to do then to cheat this is I need to fasten a board like this. And the key is that this has to be parallel to that pencil line. So if you don't care about the boards too much, if it's okay to use screws or something like that, you can screw the boards together. If you don't want to have fastener holes in there when you're done, then double-face tape or hot glue would work real well for this. I like double-face tape a little better, except that my guitar playing fingers have 0 nails on them. So I always have a hard time getting the tape started. There we go. This is something that drives the video crew nuts when it takes me an hour to get paper off of 3 pieces of tape. All right. So like I said, when this guide goes on, 2 parameters here. One, it has to go on parallel to the angle that we're trying to produce. So I can do that by measuring at this end, and then measuring at this end. Or if the board you're sticking on is wide enough, you can just bring it right over to the pencil line. Pretty darn close. Then I'm going to lean on this a little bit to make sure that double-face tape adheres. Now, our layout on the table saw is measure from, you see where you guys are at? Measure from this edge to the line that you want, and that is 9 3/8. So I set my saw to 9 3/8. And this board that I tacked on there, this piece of MDF, becomes the new edge of the board. If you can see. it's a cool and very easy way to use a table saw to cut a taper on a larger piece of stock. Downside is going to be, unlike the taper guide, you're going to have to lay out, if you're cutting 6 of these, you got to get that taper line, that layout line on each of those 6 pieces as you go. Okie dokie, I'm done.
All
I'm
right.
not done, it's only like 7.
Okay. Our next question is, I'm not sure who it comes from. There's no name. But it says, George, what is the minimum rail thickness for case construction using 1/2 inch plywood?
I don't really, if you're still watching, I gotta expound on the question a little bit because I don't understand it. Rail, first thing I'm thinking of is face frames. I use 3/4 inch stock if we're talking about face frames. And that doesn't matter if the case is 1/2 inch material or 3/4 or 5/8. I always use 3/4 inch stock for face frames. But if it's not face frames you're talking about, clarify for me, please. I don't really get the question.
Okay. John wants to know, how do you know what rasp and files are coarse and fine? Also, how do you clean them?
Okay. You stay here, and she'll be immediately back. I'm going to the file drawer to get a file or a rasp. Right. And to be fair, I'm not much of a rasp and file kind of a guy. Dave McKendrick, who writes for WWGOA, is way more of a way more avid user of this stuff than I. But this device is actually out of my construction toolbox. It's a great thing to have in your carpenter's apron. And rasp, file, coarse versus fine, coarse versus medium. I honestly don't know. But I can answer the second part of the question, how do you clean them? To clean them, you need a file card. And that's what this is. Now, these I've been using since my machine shop days in junior high and high school. And with this, it's got kind of a brush side and then a really stiff bristle side. And the key to this is going to be, you can try the softer side first. And if that's not getting the schmutz, if that's not getting the stuff out of the teeth, then go to the stiffer side. And really, it's basically like you're pulling a wire brush across the teeth, because you are pulling a wire brush across the teeth. And that'll clean the junk out of there so that you can keep going. So file card is the answer for cleaning a rasp or a file. But sorry, I don't know. I don't know if, like sandpaper, do they assign numbers to files that tell us the level of abrasiveness, or I don't know how that works.
Okay, great.
Well, not really, because I couldn't answer the question, but thank you. So
I'm just going to do a commercial now.
okay.
Okay, so for those of us who just joined us, I'm here with George Von Driska, the managing editor of Woodworkers Guild of America. If you don't already do so, subscribe to the newsletter, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Did I get them all?
I think so.
Wonderful. Okay, here we go. Steve wants to know, what is the best way to waterproof a tabletop that may be used for setting a sweating glass on it?
I stick, in the world of finishes, oils, shellac, sorry, I got a weird shoulder today. Oil, shellac, lacquer, polyurethane. Polyurethane gives you, of those, the best alcohol and water resistance. And that's high use area. I go with polyurethane on a tabletop.
Polyurethane.
Yep.
On the tabletop. Okay, great. Warren wants to know, what is the best to glue and connect 3 10-feet long boards to make a tabletop? The boards are 3/4 inch oak boards. Is glue enough, or should Warren also tie the boards together by metal or oak stringers on the bottom sides?
So absolutely not to the, well, pretty much absolutely not to the second part of the question. So 3/4 inch edge to edge glue up, boom, 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 you can glue them. And the lesson I try to teach my students all the time is that today's glues are stronger than the material that you're gluing together if you have a good glue joint. So if you've jointed those edges and they're coming together nice, and you glue and clamp them, you're going to be smurferific. You're going to be fine. The problem, what's making my flag go up on the second part of the question is, let's say we have a tabletop, and you're talking about a piece of metal or some other type of cleat like this. This is what's called a cross grain application, which is just what it sounds like. The grain in this piece is perpendicular to the grain in this piece. If you don't, you can do that, but if you don't do it right, then wood wants to expand and contract seasonally across its width. And if we put something on here rigidly, it's going to limit that movement, and the tabletop is going to crack. Now, the bench that we're looking at right here has got angle iron underneath it to help keep the top flat, but the bolts through the angle iron are in oversized holes. So that as this, 30-inch wide top moves seasonally, those bolts are actually slipping back and forth in the holes. There's similar ways to do that with wood. CMT makes a router bit that allows you to route a slot specifically for a wood screw. So we could screw these together and not limit the movement of the tabletop, but never, ever, 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 ever glue them, because that's going to just lead to huge issues later.
Okay, thanks, George. Max asks. Wow, I can't say that. Max asks.
Max asks.
Okay, Max wants to know, are Record and Stanley brand smoothing plane blades interchangeable?
You don't know, say. I have no idea.
Okay.
We need a hand tool person, and that ain't me.
Oh.
So my standard joke is my hand tools are all in a cabinet behind a glass door, and on the front of the cabinet it says, "In case of emergency, break glass." I did hand tool stuff when I taught Peace Corps overseas, but it's I don't know enough to ask that question.
Okay.
Answer that question.
Okay. Ben would like to know, is there a way to salvage warped 2x4s?
For the fireplace? Here's sort of yes and no. So when a piece of wood, and it doesn't matter if it's a construction grade 2x4 or hardwood that you bring into your shop, if it starts to go kerflooey, it's kerflooey. So I don't know that I have anything laying here that's got like a twist or a cup or a bowl or whatever. This one does. So this one, in addition to dog hair stuck all over the end of it, it's got a pretty significant banana shape, this one. So question, could I somehow force that banana shape out of it and press it flat and get it to stay there? No. If it's got that shape today, it's got that shape. We can machine it out. So if I took that concave side, that's this face, if I took that concave side to a jointer and I jointed it flat, then it would be flat. And then I went from there to a planer, that face down, plane the other face, the two faces would be parallel. So that's the process of squaring up the board. So salvaging crooked 2x4s, if they're all snaky and corkscrewed and you still want them to be 1.5 by 3.5, their actual size, there's really no way to force them back to straight and have them stay straight. However, if you're willing for the parts you get out of them to be smaller, you could machine them down, but it begs the question, what made it go kerflooey in the first place, and are they just going to go kerflooey again after you've gone through the process of straightening?
Okay.
Probably yes is the answer.
So what's your final answer for Ben?
It depends. If you want a 2x4, then there's no way to grab like a 2x4 and twist it back to straight and have it stay straight. Or if if you're building a wall with it and you nail it straight in the opening and you're racking and fracking to get it on your pencil line, as soon as you let go of it, it's going to want to relax against those nails. So if it's really crooked, I wouldn't use it. If you're machining it to a smaller size, you could do a squaring process and get it square, probably.
Okay.
And then maybe be
Okay.
okay.
Jim asks, I need to construct a solid core door for the knee wall attic in a new room. Rather than purchasing a custom door, have you ever been successful, George, in constructing a door from particle board or MDF?
Yeah, I mean, I've made a lot of cabinet. I made lots of MDF cabinet doors. MDF is a wonderful paint grade material, so that's a viable candidate. Paints like a dream, flat as the day is long. Be a good candidate for a door.
Cool. All right.
Heavy.
Okay. Robin would like to know, what is your favorite wood to use for turning?
Well, anything that gets me turning on the lathe is my favorite wood. If I'm buying something, I like cherry a lot. I like how it cuts. I like how it stands. I love how it looks. I'm just seeing if I have any here I can show you, but I don't. But for the most part, I'm way more of a bolt turner than a spindle turner. So for the most part, I'm getting my material from logs. So that's on the shelf here, this kind of stuff. This is a piece of elm from an elm tree that went down with Dutch elm disease. I love the look of this stuff. It's got kind of a dark heartwood and a lighter sapwood. So I think the grain is pretty. It's real prone to having a lot of swirls in the grain. So in this case, I'm not really looking for a particular kind of wood. I'm looking more for the nature of it. Is there a piece of crotch wood? I cut up an amazing oak burl a month ago. The grain inside it is just crazy, crazy cool. And I don't really care if it's oak or walnut or maple or cherry. The fact that it was a burl, that's the feature I was really excited about. So in greenwood, like I'm turning those bowls out of, I don't really care what flavor it is. But cherry, if I'm actually buying a stick of dried wood to turn.
Okay, thank you. Alex would like to know, what, in your opinion, is the best wood to use for outdoor furniture?
White oak or Western red cedar or Honduras mahogany, Ipe, those all, and there's a significant price variation as you go through those. So that's going to depend on how big your pocketbook is, but all of those are naturally water resistant. Jarrah is an amazing wood, Jarrah. Comes from either Australia or New Zealand. Great outdoor wood. So any of those would work outdoors. You just got to figure out how much you want to spend.
Okay. I'm probably going to mess up this person's name, so I'm sorry. Jory, maybe, asks, I was hoping to get advice on creating, in quotes, a pixel end grain cutting board.
Oh.
As a newbie, I am looking for advice on milling a couple hundred perfect cubes, 3/4 inch, on a table saw. Do you have any tips?
Good luck. Interesting part. So by pixel, I'm assuming you're going to try to make a picture out of all of these different 3/4 inch pieces of wood, which is a very interesting idea, and I want to see it when it's done. We can head back to the table saw and I can show you my favorite way to cut small pieces of wood, but I think that, well, let's do that. Let's go cut a piece of wood and then talk about the bigger picture with the process. For this. All right, so for cutting little stuff on the table saw, my preference is always leave the guard. So with this jig, which is dirt simple, we can have the guard in place and we can cut really small pieces of wood. This is 10 inches wide, only because I'm stupid, and then that's easy to do the math for. So the key is it's got to be some whole number, 10 or 11 or 12 or whatever, to make the next step easier. Down here on the bottom, which is probably very difficult to see, there's a hook. There was a piece of 1/4 inch masonite. When it first went on, it's a lot thinner than a 1/4 inch right now because it's been cut through a couple times. When you put that on, glue it on, don't staple it on because eventually you're probably going to cut into it. And then this is a old push pad the neoprene was worn out on. So I screwed that to the top. It just makes everything easier to handle. So in application, the board is, the base is 10 inches wide. So if I want to do your 3/4 inch piece, I set my fence to 10 3/4. The sled goes against the fence. The material I'm cutting goes against the sled. And on the back end here, it's carried through by that hook. And that'll give us that 3/4 by 3/4 stock. Now, to be fair, we cut it this way. We didn't cut it this way. So to complete this process, here's what I would probably do. I would send these then through a planer. So I'd cut them oversized, maybe 13/16 by 13/16. Then I'd send them through a planer this way and this way so that we get them down to the exact dimension in both directions. Then I think what I would do, I mean, at that point, you're kind of ready to start gluing them together. I don't think it's realistic to glue everything together in one fell swoop. In other words, if you're then going to cross cut this to like 1.5 inches, 1.5 inches, and now we're going to try to assemble all these pieces. I think one big assembly is not a reasonable ask. I think you got to do this in subsections somehow, and then do a section, do a section, do a section, and then marry the sections together, which is going to mean somehow straightening the end of this completed section because it's going to have glue squeeze out. It's probably going to be not perfectly straight. So it's going to take some thinking. I would do a small scale version of it first, like 10 by 10 or something. So it's only, what would that be? 10 by 10. So you're going to have like 175 of these pieces instead of 1,000 of them, and just get a handle on the assembly process. Cause I think it's going to be, are we staying here or am I walking?
Oh yeah, you can walk.
I think the assembly is going to be the bugaboo. I think making the pieces won't be too bad, but I think the assembly portion is going to be dicey.
All right. Thank you, George. And for any viewers that just joined us, here it is, our friendly commercial break. I'm here with George Von Driska, the managing editor of Woodworkers Guild of America. If you haven't done so yet, like us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and sign up for the newsletters. You get it's free to sign up for the newsletter, and you get tons of articles delivered to your inbox. You've got lots of resources that you can use.
More content than you can shake a stick ruler at.
Right. Okay. So we've got a doozy from Jeff, and he may be in trouble with his wife.
As long as we were doing a commercial, so let's talk about, we've now got the lives on a more regular basis. So it's always going to be the second Thursday of the month, 7 p.m. Central Time. So Sam will tell us where that puts us in December, and we'll mention this again as we get to the end. December 8th, I'm being told. Very close to St. Nicholas Day, because I think that's December 6th. So anyway, our next one will be December 8th, but moving forward, it will always be the second Thursday of the month, 7 p.m., unless I'm on the road teaching or something like that. All right, so who's in trouble? What's going on?
Jeff may be in trouble with his wife. Okay.
I can always send a note home.
He bought a beautiful 3x5 foot cherry coffee table. Didn't really pay attention and realized that it wasn't sealed with any sort of lacquer or urethane. The wood is stained, some reddish brown, right? But it's pretty beat up. It has dings and stuff in it. Is it possible for Jeff to simply seal the top surface with an oil urethane if the wood is properly cleaned and the scratches and dings are filled, or is he doomed to have an angry wife?
You're doomed. Move out now. No, what I would do, if there's some form of finish on it, the problem is always compatibility between one layer of finish and the next. So if it's stained, we don't know anything about what that stain was. If it's raw wood, go ahead and clean it up and finish over the top. You're G, good to go. But if you think there's any form of existing finish on there, before you do the polyurethane, de-waxed shellac is the go-to in-between coat thing. And the key to that is de-waxed shellac. If you go to a home center or some woodworking stores, Zinsser Seal Coat is the product, but you really, really got to be sure that it is de-waxed shellac, which Seal Coat is, and unnecessary. Kibitzing from the peanut gallery. If it's de-waxed, you can once the shellac is dry, you can paint over it, lacquer over it, polyurethane over it. It's a wonderful sealer to go between any finish and any finish. So if there's any question about finish compatibility, always do de-wax shellac before you do the next finish.
All right, George. Pete wants to know,
Pete
do
and repeat round both. Pete fell out with luck.
you have any tips on creating small dovetail pins? He's talking 6 inches wide or smaller.
6 inches is a pretty big pin.
Look, I just read them.
No, because I don't really understand the question. So I don't know. I mean, are we hand cutting? Are we dovetailing on a router jig? Because some router jigs will take, a lot of router jigs use a 1/2 inch, 14-degree dovetail cutter. Some are capable of using smaller bits, which would then result in a smaller socket and a smaller pin. Hand cutting, it's a function of laying out a smaller pin and being able to execute it, being able to cut it. So I don't fully understand the question, so that's my best answer at this point.
Okay.
I'm getting a lot. Well, my prevailing answer tonight is I don't understand the question.
Well, hopefully people will clarify.
Epic fail on my part, and we're only halfway through.
Well, hopefully people will clarify, right? You guys feel free to clarify. Fred wants to know what Fred can use to show scratches and irregular marks on the wood prior to staining a project so it can be fixed.
Great question. Mineral spirits is the answer. So the problem with finishing is it brings out all of your best or all of your worst features. So if we have a chunk of old wood and we're pretty darn certain we've sanded it correctly, we think it's ready, and then you put, especially if you put stain on here and it's a little bit dark, that stain is great at showing swirls left by your random orbit sander, marks left by the plane or whatever. If you wipe it down with mineral spirits, you're going to wet the wood, and that's going to help show any problems that you have before you go to your finish. Then make sure you let that mineral spirits thoroughly dry before you go to your regular finish. But that's a great cheat. The other thing that rears its head under finish is glue. So same deal. If you get mineral spirits on here and you've got a fingerprint left from glue or a glue spot of any kind, that glue that was left behind is going to show up.
Okay. Magnum has some logs that they're going to be creating furniture with, right? Whatever. The logs are between 12 and 24 inches in diameter and maybe 2 feet tall. So logs. Okay. So he wants to know if he could take some of that wood out of one of them to make a cutting board, like a slab. What is the best saw that he could pick up at like a box store for that?
Well, you can rip logs with a chainsaw. The problem, a couple things. Chainsaw chains are crosscut chains, not really ripping chains unless you buy a ripping chain. So I've got a chainsaw-based sawmill. Obviously, that's a ripping operation. So I buy a tooth pattern chain that's specifically designed for ripping as opposed to cross-cutting. That being said, if the chain is sharp and it is a cross-cutting chain, it's going to do an okay job of ripping a couple of times. I wouldn't want to do miles of it. Then the other thing that's tough is I have many logs in the other building, but not in here. The other thing that's going to be tough is just we've got this big cylinder, and you do one freehand cut, and then you're going to do another freehand cut, and keeping those faces parallel is dicey. But if you leave it oversized in thickness, then you can always, once it's dry, you can send it through a planer and get it flat and the two faces parallel. So if you can get them within a 1/4 inch or so of parallel, you can fix it later in the planer. So chainsaw would do it. Other than that, I mean, you can rip them with a big old tree cutting handsaw. You're going to have forearms and biceps the size of Paul Bunyan when you're done, because it's going to be a lot of work, but it'll do it. When I was first turning, I didn't own a chainsaw, and I cut every log that I ended up putting on the lathe, and pointing to the lathe. Every log I put on the lathe, I cut with, if you go up above that door, Chris, over the line, there you go. Every log that I turned on the lathe back when I was a young buck, I cut with that saw in order to get it into a bowl length and put it on the lathe. I cut with that saw until I could get it to bandsaw size. So it's doable. Maybe the man I am today, sort of. But chainsaw would be your best option. And if you look at videos I've done for GOA, if you go on GOA and you search in the upper right-hand corner, electric chainsaw, I think there's at least 2 videos up already where in the shop I'm using an electric chainsaw. I paid under $100 for it. It's electric, so you can use it in the shop. And boy, does it cut. It would do that work for you.
Okay, thanks, George. Matt wants to know, what is a good wood to make spoons and utensils out of? He's got similar sized pieces of cherry that maybe will work, and whatever wood, what is the best to seal them with afterwards? He's never made any spoons, but he wants to try it.
Spooning. Maple is kind of the go-to choice for spoons. I don't think cherry would be bad. I actually don't. So what I'm thinking of here are closed grained wood. So red oak would be a bad choice. Cedar would be a bad choice. Pine would be a bad choice because they're open grained and they're going to tend to soak up stuff, whatever you're stirring. Where maple, walnut, cherry are closed grained woods. I don't know why. And beech would be another good example, would be a good choice. I don't know why you don't see spoons made out of cherry. I would research that a little bit for somebody besides me and find out, is there a compelling reason? Does something migrate from a cherry spoon into the material, into the stir stuff that wouldn't migrate from beech or maple? I'm not sure. I've made a couple spoons and I'd show it to you if I knew exactly where it was. There's a couple blanks laying in here. It's actually a pretty cool lathe project of all things. And I made them out of maple, hard maple, and seal them with mineral oil. Mineral oil is my go-to choice for anything that you want to be food safe. So cutting boards, end grain cutting boards, spoons, seal them up with mineral oil, which you can find in the pharmacy section of a grocery store or at a pharmacy. And that'll work well as a food safe sealer.
Great. Mario wants to know, does the loose tenon have the same strength as a regular tenon?
Yep. No problem. It's completely interchangeable.
Okay.
As long as they're sized correctly. No problem.
All right. Now we have a question here from Ellen.
DeGeneres?
No,
Oh.
I don't think so. Maybe. She wants to know if you can save her marriage. No, it's not from Ellen. It's for sure not for Ellen. I mean, I know she's married, but because this Ellen's husband made her.
Is that for real what she said? What this Ellen said?
This Ellen said, my husband made me an end grain cutting board. It's looking a little dry. I told him we need to put mineral oil on it. He told me no, beeswax. Could you please help us? You're saving marriages today.
Hello, I'm listening. What does Fraser say?
I'm listening. I'm listening.
Well, here's the deal, though. You're both right. So I have got on a shelf over there somewhere, I've got jars of mineral oil, and I've also got tubs of beeswax. And what I actually do to really split the two of you right down the middle and say you're both right, I've got a tub Well, and I'm gonna ask you to grab it. No, you're going the wrong way. It's actually, for some reason, it's where the glues are, I believe, and it's a little Tupperware tub that oddly enough says beeswax and mineral oil, because that's what it is. Blue lid, plastic, clear plastic bottom. Yes? Cool. I don't know why, there's some great reason why it's there instead of in the finishing cabinet. All right, so this Moses writes for GOA and does lots and lots of end grain cutting boards. You put mineral oil in here, you put beeswax in here by volume, kind of a 50-50 mix, and then you can either put it in a double boiler. You got to get the beeswax hot, or I put it in the microwave because I'm too lazy to do a double boiler. And then it's the consistency of I don't know, Vaseline or so. And then you can rub that into the surface of your end grain cutting board. And this was a mistake, so I have a rag out here. But you can rub that into the surface of the end grain cutting board. What I do like about that on end grain cutting boards is that, it's thicker. So when I do mineral oil, especially on a brand new cutting board, it'll soak up tons and tons and tons and tons of mineral oil. With this, you don't have to apply so much to get it sealed because it's a thicker product right from the get-go. So you're both right. Congratulations on both being right.
So their marriage is saved.
Marriage is saved.
Wow. Two.
2 for 2 tonight.
2 for 2 tonight. Okay, that is super awesome. Okay, Dell wants to know, George, do you know of any...
So you don't really have to say my name each time because I'm the only other person in the room.
Okay, I'll stop then. Do you know of any portable thickness planers that are over 13 inches? He has a project involving oak planks that are 16 inches wide, and he can't afford a stationary one because the job's on site.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Google could help you. A 16-inch portable planer would be the Google search, but I don't think so. I think I don't think any of them are wider than 13.
Stop tossing the stick. You're annoying the viewers. It's loud and distracting. I'm just repeating. All right. Sky says, hi, everyone. I'm from Virginia Beach. How concerned should I be about dust buildup on the lower guides of my bandsaw? I clean at the end of the cuts. Should I clean more?
No, I mean, the only time I run into real problems with that is if I'm cutting green wood and it's sticking to the guides because it's kind of sappier, then I would clean more prevalently. But when I'm cutting standard kiln-dried material, I don't even go down there and clean them. I mean, unless something tells me I need to. But that drier dust off of kiln-dried stuff, especially if it's in the hardwoods, is not really going to have a tendency to stick. I guess if you're cutting a lot of sappy material like southern yellow pine or just standard pine, then it might take more frequent cleanings. But it's not really been a problem for me where I don't know that I've ever actually made a point of cleaning the lower guides on my bandsaw. So I wouldn't overthink it.
So it doesn't really need to be too concerned.
I don't think so.
Okay.
And it being 7:41, I'm going to ask my favorite question, which is to get everybody to tell us where you're watching from. It's my favorite part of the GOA Live show. So let us know in comments where you are.
Okay. Tom has just started building a WWGOA sofa table, by the way, one of my favorite projects anyways, with a walnut top and bottom shelf and hard maple for the legs. And he wants to use a clear finish. What should he use?
Well, I'm a huge fan of lacquer. It dries fast. It goes on easy. That being said, I'm able to spray, which I think is the best way to apply lacquer. Minwax does make a brushable lacquer that lays out, self-levels pretty nicely. The greatest level of protection for any table is going to come from something in the polyurethane family. So depending on how this is going to get used, if you think it's going to get exposed to wet cocktail glasses or something like that, polyurethane would be a better choice. Shellac is a great finish. between shellac, lacquer, and polyurethane. Shellac has the lowest level of protection against alcohol in water. Lacquer is better, polyurethane is the best. If you're not too worried about that level of protection, shellac or lacquer either one of those would be a great choice.
Okay. Clay says, hello, everyone. He has a few myrtle wood blanks left over from cutting veneer. Clay's never worked with myrtle before. What would be a good project for this type of wood? The blanks are roughly 18 by 4 by 6 inches.
I've turned a lot of myrtle, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Clay, but doesn't myrtle have a really cool, strong smell? Like, kind of like a Vicks sort of a smell. Yeah, so I don't know, turning blanks would be good. Or resaw it down to small pieces you could make boxes out of or something. I don't know, it's kind of not, I don't know if it's for me to say. It's beauty's in the eye of the beholder. So make something you want to make.
Okay. John is trying to make 1-inch circles in a piece of wood, but doesn't want them to go all the way through. He's been using a router with a straight router bit, but the circles are not perfectly round. Short of buying some form of fancy jig, what are my options? He imagines he can put it on a drill press, but he doesn't own one. Any help would be greatly appreciated.
So
sounds like maybe like those Moncala things you made, except round.
Well, so when if he said 1-inch holes,
circles.
I have a bigger picture in my head. If he's making 1-inch circles, makes me think he's cutting a circle and the core of it is still there. Although if he's doing it with a router, that doesn't make a lot of sense. So I think the router a plunge router is your best option, I think. And the key is going to be starting with a 1-inch hole that you know is a good 1-inch hole. So you got to find somebody with a drill press, go to them with a piece of good hard wood, hard maple, 3/4 inch Baltic birch plywood, something like that, and drill one perfect 1-inch hole. And then if you stay where you is, and I'm going to ask you to zoom when I get back. Hold please, hold please. Okay. And then the key to making this work is what's called a pattern style router bit. So big zoom on the router bit there, give you a little contrast behind it. And the deal with these pattern style cutters, it's like a flush trim bit, except that on a flush trim router bit, the bearing would be here. On a pattern bit, the bearing is here. So if you can picture this, once you've got an existing 1-inch hole, this bearing will ride in that hole. The cutter is exactly the same diameter as the bearing. So then it'll clear the waste out below it, and you can use the plunge setting on the router in order to control how deeply you're cutting. And that should take care of it. So I think that would be my go-to solution. The key is you just got to get one good hole because you're going to use it as a template for all your subsequent cuts.
Okay. Frank says, I made a walnut slab table with a live edge on it. I sanded all the way to 320 grit paper with an orbital. After finishing it with natural Danish oil, I noticed there's a blotch in the middle of the board. How can I fix this? Is it naturally like that, or did I miss a spot sanding? Can I resand it even if it has Danish oil on it?
So yes, you can resand it. You're probably going to go through a lot of sandpaper because initially the oil is going to clog the abrasive on your sandpaper. It's hard to tell without seeing it. Is it something that's just inherent? If you're pretty confident that you thoroughly sanded this slab, nothing. You didn't lay a rag on it. You didn't have glue on your hand and touch it there. If it's a natural part of the wood, boy, would it be a shame to sand all that oil off and do all this again. only to find that you've got the same blemish in the same spot. I think you got to just look at it and determine, is that the wood, and it's just a character of the wood, or do you think you've got something there that you didn't sand out? But man, if you went through a progression of grits, whatever, 80, 120, 150, 180, blah, 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 320, and nothing had the opportunity to spoil that piece in between, then I think it's just a part of the wood. But it's hard. I can't really tell without seeing it.
Like if he said a picture, if he posted a picture, would that help or not really?
Yeah, and I don't think you can actually post pictures in the comments. I don't think we have that functionality.
Oh, okay.
I don't think.
All right. Laverne, we get this question all the time, but here we go. Laverne is an aspiring woodworker with no tools and a $100 gift card. Where should Laverne start? WWGOA.com.
Well, you need another gift card. You need at least one more gift card. That's the first thing. Yeah, if you go to WWGOA.com, and up in the upper right-hand corner, there's a search window, and you put in there 5 recommended tools, first 5 tools, starter set of tools. We've done a number of articles with a number of different opinions, not just mine, not just Paul Mayer's, not just Dave McKintrick's, but a lot of people have contributed to, here's what I think you should start with, including in Seth Keller's case, here's a great set of starter hand planes if you want to go a hand tool route. I would start by looking there. And then the next part of that is to think about, well, what is it you want to do? What do you want to make? What do you want to build? And that's going to help indicate what tool you buy first. And then my best advice really on subsequent purchases is, as you decide, here's this project, here's this thing I want to make. And for this project, now I need a pocket hole jig. Now I need a bandsaw. Now I need a, so don't go out and just willy-nilly stock your shop, because I think that it's better to be going kind of a linear progression. Most woodworkers are going to say you're going to start with a table saw or some way to cut wood up, a track saw, something like that, a jigsaw. And then once you're there, then start adding stuff as you need it to flesh out your collection based on what it is that you want to do.
Carol wants to know, are all glues food safe for cutting boards, CA glue in particular?
Well, I wouldn't glue a cutting board with CA glue, just because it wouldn't be a great glue for gluing a cutting board together. It's not really what that glue is designed for. So you're talking about primarily yellow glues. In the Titebond brand, it would be Titebond Original, Titebond 2, and Titebond 3. Titebond 2 and 3 are both FDA food safe. Titebond 2 is water resistant. Titebond 3 is waterproof. I always default to Titebond 3 for cutting boards. Food safe, waterproof, and a higher heat resistance. Now, I'm not saying then go ahead and put your cutting boards in the dishwasher, but just thinking about the environment a cutting board lives in, I'd rather have that higher level of waterproofness that Titebond 3 provides than the higher level of warm environment protection that Titebond 3 provides, and it's food safe. CA glue is a funky thing. CA glue was actually first developed as a first aid item, where instead of, if somebody had a laceration, instead of it being stitched, it could be pinched closed and a drop of CA glue put on there to hold it closed, and it's still used that way in emergency rooms today. So is it food safe? Well, they're putting it on a laceration. It probably is. However, don't hold me to that. I don't know for certain, but it's just the way that CA glue works. It's not a great choice for a cutting.
Okay. Chuck says, before running a board through my thickness planer, do I have to run it over my jointer first?
If you've got, if you have that capability, then you should. So in the perfect world, so this is a piece of rough sawn walnut. In the perfect world, to get this face cleaned up and this face cleaned up, what you should do is flatten this face on the jointer, and then with that face down, plane this on the planer. And that'll give you smooth and straight on the first face off the jointer, and then on the second face, smooth, straight, and parallel to the first face. Now that being said, for a long time in my shop, I had a 6-inch joiner. Today I have an 8-inch joiner. So when I only had the 6-inch width and a board that exceeds 6 inches, like this one does, I did a lot of my flattening by only using the plane. And part of the key to that, if you're going to do that, is being gentle on how much you're taking off per pass. Because let's say the board is cupped this way, and if I really push down on it with the feed rollers on a planer, it's possible that I flatten it out from the down pressure from the rollers. I take the cup out of it, it goes under the cutters, and when it comes out the back side, it springs back up again. So I'm getting it smooth, but I'm not getting it flat. So if you're going to do all your work on the planer, which I've done a billion times, then you just got to be conservative about how much down pressure you have on it. But if you have the capability of face jointing prior to planing, that's 100% best way.
Okay. Tim just recently purchased a piece of 10-inch by 10-inch red elm on sale at a local hardware store. He's never worked with elm before. What should Tim expect in general in terms of hardness on his saw blades and types of finish?
Well, you can use any finish you want. It's a beautiful wood. Hardness, your carbide stuff, certainly your carbide blade on a table saw is going to cut it, no problem. A good bandsaw blade is going to cut it, no problem. It can be a little squirrely. The grain can be just a little bit squirrely. So 10 by 10, he didn't say how thick it is. Like, is it a bolt length? Or it's just
let me see. It says 10-inch wide by 10-inch long.
it means 10 feet long.
Well, I think, no, inches spelled out.
Oh, so if it is, Tim, a really thick blank that you're going to cut into, just a little bit squirrely, meaning sometimes with elm, as you start to cut it, it might pinch a little bit, even if it was dried well, just because of the grain being squirrely. I keep using that one stupid word, but no, you won't have any trouble cutting it, and you finish it with whatever you like. Any finish you normally use is going to be fine.
Okay. R says, since George, you are an old Shopsmith guy. Yeah, you might know this.
I'm old, or I'm an old Shopsmith?
I think an old Shopsmith guy.
Okay.
Okay. He saw in a demo once how to use something to make pocket holes. Do you know what that is? I think just kind of hoping you remember.
Well, you can do pocket holes on a Shopsmith. So the dealio is that on a Shopsmith, you've got a headstock with, so picture in your head a lathe, basically. And the difference on a Shopsmith is that the quill, the spinny part of the lathe, can be advanced, like a drill press. So then next to that, you've got a table, and when you're using that table, you can tilt the table. So if you want to do pocket holes on your Shopsmith, you tilt the table to 15 degrees, you put your table saw rip fence on there, and that acts as a backup, as a support. So now, if you can imagine, I'm going to make this felted marker is going to be my drill bit. This is the material that's sitting on my table at 15 degrees. I advance the quill on the Shopsmith, but I'm drilling a hole in the face of this material at 15 degrees. Limit your depth of cut so that you don't go all the way through, because you don't want to drill into your rip fence. And I'd go one step further, and I would buy a pocket hole drill bit, because it provides the pocket, plus it provides the relief hole for the screw to go through, rather than trying to do this with a conventional bit. But yeah, you can drill pocket holes on a Mark V or 10ER, or just by angling the table with it.
We're just down to 5 minutes, George. So I'm going to just kind of run through some of our viewers because I know how much you really, really, really like this. So we have viewers from Connecticut, lots of Canadians viewing today, Washington, Massachusetts, Indiana, Arizona, Las Vegas, Hammond, Wisconsin.
No
Go
way.
figure. I don't know why they just don't come on down and watch the magic happen.
Next time whoever's in Hammond, you can come. December 8th, you can come in the shop and watch it. I think I'll be careful what I ask for. You just might get it.
Yeah, right. And,
Okay.
you know, maybe they could be the gopher.
Maybe.
Right. And then it looks like some people from Europe.
Europe in general, or what was the big one? The real unique one that we had last month, I can't remember, that was like Antigua or something like that. But anyway, okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
Thanks for letting me know, because I do always appreciate that. We can probably squeeze in a couple more here.
Yep. The UK, and then Rome, Alaska.
Rome, not no.
Right. Okay, so Scott says, I'm in Madison, Wisconsin. Do you ever teach classes in your shop? I need a mentor.
So yes, historically, some of you may know, I had my own school running from 1998 until about 2008, 2009. At that point, 09 or so, the video stuff really took off. My old building was really small. So it was very difficult to do classes and do the video work. So still doing the video work, but new building is 3.5 times bigger than my old building. So if you go to VondriskaWoodworks.com, that's where all my courses are listed. And I am doing hands-on classes in cabinet making, furniture making. Actually, this thing sitting here, this tool tote, is a 3-hour introduction to woodworking class. So this gets students on all the major tools in the shop, and everybody leaves with a tool tote. Most of the classes involve a project of some kind that each student builds and takes home. So yeah, it's check the calendar, check the website. Nothing's on there, not much is on there for after Christmas right now, but I'll get that fleshed out as time.
And we really,
Yep, call me.
as long as we're quiet, right?
Sure.
Yeah, you know.
What's the worst that could happen?
Well, people could complain about like that ruler noise you're making.
We're almost done. It's fine.
All right, William says, when working with a bandsaw, is it really necessary to have a carbide tipped blade for resawing?
Nope. I own one. I own a Laguna Resaw King, and I love it. I really do. I've done miles and miles of resawing with Timberwolf blades, which are silicon carbon, not carbide tip. And it's more about the tooth geometry. You want a 3 or 4 tooth per inch wide blade, resaw all day long. So no, you don't have to have carbide to resaw.
All right. Well, I mean, we have like 30 seconds.
Do one more question.
Oh,
do a 30-second answer.
Okay. What program or app do you use to make the plan drawings and cut lists for your projects?
All the drawings that you see or I'll take that back. 90% of the drawings you see on WWGOA are done on SketchUp, which is free drawing software that you can download onto your very own computer. And I think Bruce Kiefer, one of our authors, who also does a lot of drawings for us, I believe he does not use SketchUp, and I actually can't remember what software he uses. And then for cut list and sheet layout, I use software called Cut List Plus. So Bridgewood Design is the manufacturer. With Cut List Plus, I can take, if I'm doing a kitchen, once I've got the part sizes, I can put all the part sizes in. It'll optimize them onto my sheet stock or onto solids. You know, you can do it either way. And it'll print out a cut list, and it'll print out those cutting diagrams so that I'm getting the most possible pieces nested together out of one sheet. So SketchUp for drawing, and then to do a commercial on that, we do have a SketchUp class currently available on WWGOA. David Radke taught that and did a wonderful job. And actually, he and I just finished shooting the second level of SketchUp. So give us maybe a month or two to get that posted. We just looked at the rough edit of it this week. David is a great teacher. So if you want to learn SketchUp, that's a great way to do it. And then Bridgewood Design, Cutlass Plus on sheet optimization and Cutlass related stuff.
Okay, great.
All right, so then remember, second Thursday of every month now from here on out, meaning that December 8th, 7 p.m. Central Time is our next one. And I think that's it. So if there's questions on there that I didn't get to verbally, now I'm about to go in my office and I'll sit and answer all of those. And that's it. We'll see you in a month.
Okay, thanks, George.
Yeah.